looked into for their good and bad deeds. The crux of Bhakti movement provided its devotees equally a kind of Suleiman and pious knowledge to discern beauty and essence of life. The sense and sense of Bhakti movements were against racial, caste, and classical fragmentation in the name of human relations. Bhakti addressed the core voice of the masses. It wanted a right of equal worship, regard and respect for God and devotion of God. Religion does not approach the devotion of temple, scriptures, Vedas and classical language. Bhakti path followers exclude these mediums of worship as a vain basket of religion. The teaching of Kabir says, पत्थर पूजे हरि मिले मैं पूजू पहाड़ उससे भला कुछ जिससे किस है संसार. Bhakti movement is mystic knowledge, and it is gained through personal endeavors and devotion. It hindered personal God to acknowledge the true meaning of knowledge, jnana, karma, and yoga. Through example, Kabir and Guru Nanak are the veteran protagonists of the Bhakti movement. Bhakti, a revolt against the rigid concept of God and religion, is formalized soul, mind, and body to know the power of mystic knowledge. It is a movement to make God accessible to all, irrespective of their caste, origin, religion, and language. It is a movement to give dignity to all common people who were denied equal place in society in the name of caste and religion. Kabir, Guru Nanak, and Vidyapati are among the stalwarts of this movement. In the development of Bhakti movement, they played a significant role in popularizing the theme of God as omnipresent. God can be realized and even regularized by an uneducated person born into so-called low caste family. In this regard, as already mentioned, Swami Ramananda brought to North India Bhakti, which was born in Dravindas, and Kabir propagated it in the 7 islands and 9 continents. As a Hindu verse says, the teaching of Swami Ramananda's hymn says, don't ask anybody his caste or with whom he can eat. He who worships Hari becomes Hari's own. Jati Pati Puche Na Koi, the same, the verse by Ramananda. Single-minded devotion to God is the sole and sufficient means to liberation. Among Ramananda's 12 disciples were a Brahmin, a Rajput, a Jat, a Brahman, a Barbar, Muslim, Weaver, and 2 women. He made Bhakti purely ethical and universal. Now I skip the passages. Now the concluding time is a number of saints after Kabir were Dadu, Daria, Karnadas, Sojabai, Garibdas, Paltudas, Mulukdas, though they were not the follower of Kabir Panthis or Kabir. However, they were not dualists because their prayers and preachings were pure. They were totally different from the bhakti of Tulsidas, Mirabai, and Surdas, who pursued traditional Hinduism, caste, and sages in life. Idol worship and bhakti of God, who is Sagun and accepted rich significance. Kabir refused to accept the Brahmical's 4 stages of life. The 4 stages are birth, growth, decline, and death, as well as caste discrimination. He did not argue about the 6 Hindu philosophy systems. Bhakti was the true religion for Kabir, but it was useless without bhajan. He taught Hindus and Muslims similar lessons through his compositions, both Hindus and Muslims followers praised these teachings equally. Due to constraint of time, now I conclude. Here my paper. Thank you. Thank you.
That's fine. Because these are very important questions to be asked and discussed, and it's a different power center. Bhakti is a different power. So he's trying to focus it in a different way. How Bhakti is a different power, and now you know how Bhaktas are becoming a different power in India. So I'm going to next paper now. May I request Ajit to present his paper on exploring humanistic version of Mirabai.
So I would like to start my discussion with a reference to yesterday's discussion by one of the panelists, Professor, I don't remember his name, from Nepal, the University. He said that humanism is at the center of all ideologies in the world, and it is the essence of Bhakti movement also. So my paper explores the humanistic vision of Mirabai. So in continuation with that discussion, so I start my paper. Bhakti is a blend of love and devotion. It is commonly admitted that the doctrine of Bhakti occupies the central place in Indian culture, and also that there have been till the present day great Bhakti movements which have transformed not only the religious but also the social thought and life of the people of India. It is a populous literary form that is usually composed by saint poets of all the castes and both genders in their native tongues. All artistic expressions pertaining to it position the devotee and God in a particular relationship. Bhakti is a general and a relative term which can be used in a wide range of contexts, secular as well as religious. It can assume particularity only when it is used in connection with its objects. Hence the use of phrases like Guru Bhakti, Desh Bhakti, Swami Bhakti, etc. is quite common. Even in the religious context, it means devotion to God only in the general sense, with no implication of any particularized image or conceptualization of God. This is indicated only when a prefix is added to the term Bhakti, as is the case in specifications such as Shiv Bhakti, Vishnu Bhakti, Krishna Bhakti, etc. Thus, Bhakti as a feeling of religious devotion constitutes a part of every religion. The nature of its manifestation in a particular religious tradition, however, is conditioned by the nature of the cognition of God found therein and by the beliefs and practices connected therewith. The Bhakti movement in India challenged the dominance of Vedic sacrificial religion, caste boundaries, gender inequity, and use of Sanskrit as the exclusive language of religion. Bhakti integrates aspects of personal religious experience, social protest, and a variety of ritual modes around the notion of intimacy with one's deity that colors all aspects of human existence. The movement began in South India around the 5th century and in the next 1,000 years spread northward throughout the subcontinent, taking on individual and distinctive forms as it moved from one area to another. Despite these regional differences, there are thematic similarities that remain true throughout. The different rituals and varying methods of worship were forgotten, and this love of God was accepted without question. Unlike earlier movements, the Bhakti poets belong to all classes of society, from the highest to the lowest, and include man as well as women. It gave women a place of honor. This stress on equality and the implicitly subversion of the caste system makes Bhakti one of the most radical subversive movements in Indian history. This movement acted as a unifying force in the time of cultural crisis. It was a devotional movement emphasizing the intense emotional attachment of a devotee towards his personal God. The movement has strongly influenced the Indian religious life for the past 1,000 years by drawing personal worth not from one's conventional social status but solely from the depth of one's devotion. It provided a spiritual path that was open to everyone. It was undoubtedly the most widespread, far-ranging and multifaceted movement that appeared in India. The movement influenced almost the whole country at different times and had a definite impact not only on religious doctrines, rituals, values and popular beliefs, but on art and culture as well. In the cultural field, the growth of regional languages, devotional music, poetry, painting, etc. became closely related to the Bhakti movement. Using the regional languages like Braj, Avdhi or whatever as a vehicle, poets and composers were able to reach out to people in social strata otherwise impervious to the influence of art and music. The movement has enriched all Indian languages to a greater measure than any other movement, political, social or economic. Wherever it flourished, it helped the promotion of human integration and other movements aimed at promoting national and social integration. On the emotional front, also Bhakti accelerates the progress of the sublimation of emotion, which helps in the cultural refinement and spiritual advancement of a man. The movement appealed to the common man. The leaders of the movement addressed themselves to the man in the street than to the priest or scholar in royal courts. The movement had two distinct facets to it. One laying emphasis on the worship of Vishnu and his avatars, Ram and Krishna, and the other on the devotion of Nirgun Brahma alone. The former one represented Vishnu worship and Sagun Bhakti, and the other was an expression of an equally powerful movement to popularize the belief in an impersonal God and the path of Nirgun Bhakti. The two groups propagated different ideologies, although Bhakti was common to both. They can be treated as an integrated whole only if Bhakti is understood in its unique meaning of religious devotion. In order to look into the fundamentals of Bhakti in general and Mirabai's devotion to Krishna in particular, we have to focus on her evolution as a human being become saint. Her life experiences covertly or overtly transformed her as a human in a materialistic world with a spiritual world of her own. Mirabai was the North Indian Krishna devotee and Bhakti poet whose songs or padas constitute the best part of Bhakti poetry in India. From her childhood days, she was passionately devoted to Krishna. It is said that during her childhood, she was given an idol of Krishna by a mendicant. She became deeply attached to it and probably her religious fervor grew stronger. Although her parents arranged her marriage with the son of another Rajput ruler, yet she considered Krishna to be her true husband. With the death of her husband Bhojraj, the eldest son of Rana Sanga, in 1523 she became free of her marital obligations. As a widow, she devoted all her time and energy to the worship of Krishna, accepting him as her divine lover and husband. In this way, she acted as a rebel, not hesitating to break the conventions and often ignored the rigid codes of behavior set for women by the society. Don't you think that her reaction was not typical of her time but elevated in the form of a rejection and intolerance towards those social norms which she did not perceive women as human beings? Therefore, it was the protest of a human being against hypocritic human beings for the betterment of all the human beings that undoubtedly and necessarily include women. Though her reaction incurred the wrath of the family, especially of new king, she does not hesitate to question such abnormalities and says, "None dare come in my way, I go enchanted, kicking aside the glories of my ancestors." The above lines deeply depict the tenderness of a woman's heart and also in its vigorous defiance of social norms. Apparently, Rana wanted to put a stop to all this. After extended conflict with her in-laws, they reportedly attempted to poison her. I thought, why must I not hate your palace, Rana? You sent me the cup of poison to kill. No, I drank it as the offering to my Lord. Her true devotion towards Lord Krishna saved her and she was allowed to leave the palace. She reportedly spent her later years visiting places associated with Krishna and partaking in the good company of other devotees until finally she went to Dwarka. She was absorbed into the image of Krishna here. Meera's poetry is most marked by her expressions of longing for Krishna, and she often speaks of herself as his wife, his waiting lover, seeking physical and mystical union with him. Meera's Lord is Girdhar, companion of all her lives. The major theme of her poetry is the reverberation of ideas and feelings that a lover experiences in eternal union with the beloved. It is imperative to see that she did not bemoan her sufferings, nor did she shed tears of separation, but expressed her dilemma in vigorous terms. Her dilemma was as natural any human being, but her Devotion not only towards her God, but also for her perspective towards the essential elements of a dignified life made her different from others and an inspiration for other females and males as well. As a poet, she is at her lyrical best when singing of her love for Krishna. Her love is sung in its multiple faces. And attraction, hope, longing, disappointment, jealousy, anger, and the joy of union. These poems are not in any sequence of time, but only capture the mood of the moment. Her love poetry represents the constant craving of the soul to be merged with the infinite God, thus achieving eternal peace. One of the eminent critics, K.B. Jindal, thought, she easily realized that the love of Krishna and gopis are the typical of the longing of the human spirit or the soul for the union with the divine. She needed no allegory to understand the homely truth. She just put herself in the place of Radha, and all her verses are direct apostrophes to Krishna. Sure. Mira's love for Krishna is a symbolic representation of the basic need of human existence and incessant search for an indispensable element of life, that is love. Her life became a legend for the public not only for her spiritual quest but also for her philosophy and understanding of human life. The deep connection of her life experiences and literature with the life of a number of people impelled them, and thus the stories of her ordeals and suffering, her intense devotion to Krishna, were carried all over North India by the ascetics and devotees whom she used to welcome in her temple. Her songs spread far and wide and became an integral part of the life of the people. Her poetry devoted to Lord Krishna as her lover and husband, and also the way of life she adopted brought in social criticism. She was perhaps the most vigorous woman of medieval times who challenged the customs and values of her age. The emotional feelings of Mirabai are preeminently based on popular human relationships. They are quite natural, spontaneous and psychological, and hence can be pursued by any mortal of any ordinary intellect. Her poetry generally depicts the accomplished love, and which presents strikingly the depth of affection both in union as well as in intermittent separation. She was independent not only in life but also in her poetic output. The whose inquiry into Mirabai's life and her literary output raises many questions. Was her spiritual journey an outcome of her materialistic experiences? Was her love and devotion towards Krishna a form of protest and complaint? Did she want to primarily transcend all the debatable social norms in the form of her transcendental love? Was her reaction towards the rigidity and hypocrisy of human beings as a form of rebellion or a practice of assent? Was her literature a manifestation of an individual experience or an exploration of a general pattern of human life? Was her approach towards life humanistic or spiritual? Interestingly, the last question embodies the crux and nucleus of this intellectual and philosophical inquiry. Mirabai's life experiences impelled her to seek the unattained love, dignity, and socio-cultural identity in the form of her spiritual quest. Her devotion for Krishna is a musical and literary manifestation of the material requirements of every human being. Her life and literature establishes that physical love may transform into a spiritual and eternal one if it is deeply sincere and humanistic in approach. She paved the way for so many females who were exploited by male-dominated social, religious and cultural practices of the then society. Ironically, the popularity of her songs and spiritual journey has not been able to really move people in such a way that they reject those practices which Mira did not accept at all. This is the high time to understand Mira and her humanistic approach in true sense, and her philosophy which centers upon the essence of human existence in a materialistic world with all the dignity and love. In a nutshell, through Krishna, she seeks to find love in this very world and makes her own spiritual world wherein this individual craving and longing is the general need of love for survival which the contemporary world needs the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajit. Even in Jayadev also we listen to such lands. Meera also we listen, and in South we go to Akkamare, then Andal. So what exactly is the relation between love and bhakti? For outside it look entirely different, but when you write it as a poetry or a prose, then it look alike. So thanks Ajit for the wonderful paper. Now doesn't listen to some different points. The youngsters are always coming up with so many questions. They can easily problematize our traditional thinking. May I request Arushi Bahuguna to talk about rethinking hagiography or rethinking Bhakti is Mahina Bai and Lumira, the modern woman. Please.
I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak, to present my paper. I'll be speaking on how popular hagiographies of women Bhakti saints have failed to represent them as models fit for emulation by the masses. Responding to a quote from a previous presentation that how Kabir and Nanak have become the proponents for Bhakti. So I asked this question that in a movement that inspired so many women to come in front of us as saints, why don't we have the women saints as famous models for the masses to follow? And my argument is that the answer to this question lies in the hagiography. The way hagiographies on women saints differ from male Bhakti saints. So I'll be focusing on on two Bhakti saints, Mirabai and Mirabai, and how their rebellion against gender and caste inequalities has been either edited, omitted, or completely forgotten. Recovering their radical struggle against social evils requires a rereading of their hagiographies, where we challenge dominant accounts by comparing them with the women who emerged from their own poetry. We find that there is a gap between poetry and hagiography of these women saints. Their poetry is replete with their rebellion, but this rebellion is edited from popular retellings of their lives. Since what Meera and Bahinabai fought against is still plaguing our society, the act of revisiting their hagiographies can be useful in fighting gender and caste oppression today. And today, when we have gathered here to think of ways of reviving Bhakti in our own time, rewriting hagiographies of women saints can enrich such a revival of Bhakti, as it will link Bhakti to contemporary issues of inequality and can emerge as a solution to resolving these crucial issues. Now,